So good morning, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this panel discussion on the rapidly changing landscape of AI in university teaching, learning, and assessment. So in our own universities, we're beginning to grapple with this accelerated pace of AI development as well. And this panel discussion brings together renowned educators from Hong Kong to Cairo in Egypt to New York in the USA and beyond to begin to form a cognitive foundation upon which we can make intelligent, considered choices about AI in our own profession.
It is important for us to recognize this is an inflection point, and it offers us some really good opportunities to think about what we do in terms of teaching, in terms of learning, but also what is necessary to benefit students, to benefit the society at large. And of course, we may not have the answers right away, but the important thing is that we understand this is a moment of real import, real gravitas, and it will impact us perhaps for generations to come.
When they use such tools, they can use it in a productive way and make sure not falling into traps of putting up the private information in the system.
I think one of the key things to keep in mind is making learning meaningful is the most important thing. Like writing is one way to express learning, and sometimes it is the way we learn, but the learning is not the actual product that the ChatGPT produces, right? Like that a human can produce. It's making the learning process meaningful to students is what we need to focus on, the things that we care about and the things that students care about, and make sure that we're teaching them the things they care about and finding ways for those things that are important and meaningful and relevant to be part of the education process. And then no tool is gonna get in the way of that, in my opinion.
And if we think about guidelines for collaboration, usually it's always been at the instructor's discretion to define in their courses what forms of collaboration with other students are permissible and what forms of collaboration with other students are not permissible. And I think the same would hold true for AI. And I really think that my takeaway from this is just it's up to individual instructors to reflect on their courses and be intentional about being clear about what their expectations for AI are for their students and what they aren't, and to reflect on what their learning goals and to the extent to which collaborating with AI will further those learning goals for their students and the extent to which it won't. But we should all be intentional in our teaching about how we use AI and how we instruct students on how to use it.
My key takeaway is simple in that it's conversations like this that will continue to prove to be invaluable as we make sense of the emerging and seismic impact that these tools will have on teaching and learning.
Two things. One, if you can, experiment. If you're worried about it, experiment with it. Try to figure out where the fault lines are. And then number two, if you can, communicate about it. So it's those two things, experimentation, communication. Yeah, if you can't do one, try to do the other.
It's the work in having these conversations and in making sure that we are present in our roles to have these conversations about some of the larger concepts that are being brought up, and being sure that we are doing what we can to shift conversation back to kind of the point of what we're doing, and not get too lost in the nuance, but still aware of that day-to-day need as well. And then the other piece that I just wanted to add is this idea of reciprocity, this idea of connecting with students and bringing that learning to life a little bit. So again, the role of an instructor and the importance of considering the choice that educators make intentionally about how they engage with their students and how they respond to their students in a given classroom at a given time. I think there's so much meaning to that, and I don't want that to get lost in the conversation. So very excited to be a part of this tonight.
For those of us who are having conversations about this topic that is rapidly evolving, it feels like it's like in the air that we're breathing. But I've talked to faculty members within the last week who are like, oh yeah, I heard about that. What is it? And we have to remember, like, not everyone is listening. They don't have their finger on the pulse in the same way that those of us in this room might. So I have colleagues at other institutions who are hosting weekly forums for faculty, and they're not super structured. It's just like, come talk, ask questions. And I think that that's important, especially for something that is shifting so rapidly. and evolving so quickly. And they're going to have to teach classes, and so they need to know, and they need to have the space to be able to ask these questions. And so I would just say, as enriching as this conversation has been tonight, take it to your communities, take it and encourage it proactively and intentionally. Continue these conversations, because otherwise they will not happen, and people will feel unsupported, and that's a recipe for nothing good. So